Okay, thank you everybody for being here. Thanks NATO Thompson and Creative Times for this wonderful invitation. It is very particular, I find it very particular being invited to do the regional report of a whole country, being an artist and being part of a collective that comes or works from models of institutional critique. So I feel privileged and because of this. In this direction, my report will be a personal report from a country where personal voices are difficult to locate, and also it will be a historical report from a country that tend to erase history. So remaking history will contextualize all what is happening now. I have to say that this weekend we are having the art fair in Bogota, in Colombia, in the capital of Colombia. Hi, friends for Art Fair friends. And during this month, the National Salon, the Artist Salon, is taking place in Medellin. I will present first the most powerful or important event of my collective, Helena Producciones, that is the Festival de Performance de Cali. And I will start with this performance that was done in the public space in Cali, in Colombia. And it questions is a critique of the commodification of the images of the misery. It brings to an actual time the term misery porn that was coined in the 70s by filmmakers Luis Ospina and Carlos Mayolo. So I will interrupt the history of the festival and Helena's history with some description of the performances. So I started to work in the art field when I was just a student in 1970, and Wilson Diaz and Juan Mejia organized the first performance festival in Cali, Colombia, and invited us, the students, to do performance during the whole day. The format of the marathon was so effective and so radical that became immediately a valid idea in the art dialogue. So in 1998, we decided to continue with this idea and to create Helena Producciones as a collective. So we had this alter ego, Helena, that is a feminine name in a macho culture, to have an excuse to do projects that individually would be impossible. So it was kind of also a survival strategy in a difficult context where art is still precarious. So we did the second festival in a sport hall of a school, of a public school in Cali, and the third, fourth, and fifth festivals took place in the museum, in the Art Modern Museum in Cali. The festival is not a festival. It borrows the form of a festival, a parade, a carnival, and a demonstration all at once. It presents during a week performances, exhibitions, public art, and on Saturday there is this performance marathon that starts normally at 9 in the morning and ends late at 9. This performance was by Pierre Pinocelli, an artist from France, and it was because the kidnapping of Ingrid Betancourt, a political figure in Colombia, by the guerrilla, and he came to Colombia to look for Ingrid in the jungle. And when he realized it was impossible to go to the jungle and find Ingrid and speak with the guerrilla, he decided to cut a little part of his finger, a finger. We have to take into account that he comes from the Nice school, so he comes from this corporeal tradition. This is the Museum of Arte Moderno La Tertulia in Cali, Colombia, and some artists use the garden of the museum or the stages that the museum has. For this festival, we decided with Andres Sandoval and Andres Triviño to make a skateboard park. So Helena doesn't have a house, and this special condition has driven us to negotiate with other spaces. So we point out historical spaces, museums, galleries, schools, and also I even don't live in Cali, in Colombia. I live in Berlin. I travel. I go 6 months to Colombia, 6 months to Berlin, and this like nomadic condition also has brought negotiation to our activities. This is Mickey Guadamur from Mexico, and in his performance, he speaks about poverty as a condition. So I am bringing here also questions that were raised yesterday as like commodification of poverty, commodification of misery, and for who is the question of poverty in this case. So now I will present the 8th festival that was last year, and we had a prize, the Visible Award from the Città dell'Arte and Fundación Epistoleto and Fundación Esenia. And I have to say now that we have had money from Europe, a lot of money from, but not a lot, like little money from Europe, but this allowed us to make this event because local fundings are really, really hard to get. Instead, we have done like all the papers to have also local and governmental fundings because we find it important to explore how it works. Especially in Colombia, where like the government provides, has a lot of funding for arts. I have to say that the last festival was most in the public space, and we had to negotiate a lot with the local government to do these activities, and the audience and the public and the concept of the public in the last festival was very important. Also, it was the festival in a whole was a review of the relations between theater, visual arts, and politics during the 60s. So the artists were asked to send proposals related to that. It also was not like a fixed condition. So during the whole week, artists proposed events in the public space, and finally the day of the performance took place in an all-liquor fabric for which we had to do to fill 21 different forms in the local government. That means a lot because to access now to permissions to work in the public space is becoming more and more, is becoming harder. This is a performance by Jonathan Hernandez, Alberto Baraya, and Luisa Ungars, and they did a guide tour in the zoo, in the zoo, like with a historical view and political view of the animals. And they asked a band, a local band, to play the song El Mochuelo. So we normally do an open call, and artists participate. We are the jury, and we select the projects. And in the collective, I have to say we are 5 people. We are Wilson Diaz, Claudia Patricia Sarria, Andrés Sandoval, Gustavo Racines, and me, Ana Maria Millan. And we organize the whole thing, and it normally takes place every 2 years. And many artists, it has been like platform for many artists that are now exhibiting in the Salón Nacional or in the art fair, and it has also activated political and public platforms in Cali, which is the 3rd city in Colombia. As you see, we mix like music with performance, with public interventions, without, sometimes we don't select which is music, which is art, and it's a bit confused, but it's also an experience for the people who go to the festival. And normally at night, in the Saturday, at the end of the week, we have music until late. It's a whole party. There is another point, another important point here, that many artists have been in Colombia producing artworks. And what does it mean? And what does it mean? It is also like produce art in a 3rd world country is cheap, but it's also nice because the people are curious, but it has like many economical implications as well. So I will now present 6 more spaces, a part of Helena Producciones, and the first one is Ciudad Solar, that was the first alternative space in Colombia in 1970. It was founded in 1971 by Hernando Guerrero. I have to say that during the 70s, it was a time of growth in Cali, Colombia, because 2 reasons. Because many people from the countryside, from the rural areas, come to Cali to work because the armed conflict in the land, and because the states stopped to import sugar from Cuba, and Colombia became the leading exporter of sugar to the States. So it created like a kind of intellectual atmosphere, the industrialization, and in 2008, in the Salón Nacional de Artistas, the curators did a review of this space in the same house with archives, and showing the whole archive of the space. I am presenting now the Ciudad Solar with the archive of Eduardo Carvajal, who is the main photographer of the film movement called Caliwood. And Ciudad Solar was the place where they recorded some of the films, they did rehearsals, and also was an art gallery and a printing studio. Many artists like Fernel Franco and Oscar Muñoz had their first show in Ciudad Solar. So after many years, the artist Oscar Muñoz, remembering Ciudad Solar and being inspired by this place that hosted his first exhibition, founded with Sally Mirashi Lugar a Dudas, that is in Cali, in Colombia, and it has a library for artists, it has an exhibition space, and it also offers residencies from artists from abroad. Now I will speak about La Rebeca, a place in Bogota founded by Michelle Faguet in 2002. And she brought for first time to Colombia independent international funding for independent spaces. La Rebeca was kind of a response of the recognition of La Panadería positive contributions to the history of institutional critique in Mexico. So Michelle invited artists from different parts of the world, developing a network of diverse, critically engaged artists, like working against the idea of defining communities exclusively in geographical and nationalistic terms, which in Colombia is very common. She invited artists from Santiago de Chile, artists from Colombia as well, and many artists from New York, from the Whitney program, like Valerie Tevere, Sharon Hayes, and many artists from Colombia had their first exhibition or solo show in La Rebeca, like Victor Albarracín and Gabriel Sierra. Also, Phil Collins produced his piece El Mundo No Escuchará, that was a karaoke of Los Smiths, and this is another example of art production of like international artists in a third world country. This is me. I was singing for the karaoke, but at the final video, I was not selected. This was the last exhibition, and every people who wanted to put drawings there could exhibit it. So I will now present like El Bodegón, that was kind of the son of La Rebeca. El Bodegón was an artist-run space that functioned between 2005 and 2009. And it hosted different kinds of events like parties, book launches, music records, videos, and it was located in a neighborhood called Germania, which is a peripheral zone attached to the downtown, but also is very close to the two main private universities in Bogota, which are Los Andes and La Tadeo Lozano. That brought many students to the exhibitions that were part of the audience. So Lorena, for example, she's exhibiting now in the Salón Nacional. And Wilson Diaz had this solo show here, and he's part of Helena Producciones, and the exhibition is about the failure and mistakes an artist can have in his or her career. This is the Bodegón, the people from El Bodegón in our festival. Now I will speak in my last 2 minutes about two spaces that are now in Bogota. One is La Agencia, and it will host a program called the Garage School for the month of November. This is an exhibition of my work with Reproducciones, and I re-edited a film made by Carlos Mayolo with the archive of the castings of the film. So the people who were not selected play like the characters. And finally, I will present you Miami, like an artist-run space. And Miami has a very particular position in the art world in Bogota, because they don't depend from private fundings and neither from the government. They rent studios, and they have this gallery downstairs where they host exhibitions. This is a work of me about an island in the Bahamas the first Colombian drug dealer used to own. And the place is located in the same neighborhood as La Rebeca. That is an English kind of English style neighborhood.